guys, how you doing today? I want to show you my beautiful Philodendron Warszewiczii. I've had this plant for, I don't know, several years now, and I absolutely love it. This one happens to be a top cutting off of my mother plant. I'll put footage of her. She's in my plant room. This one I've been rooting out here in my living room. I'll put the footage in of my mother plant right here. So you can kind of see how big she is and how crazy the roots grow, the aerial roots. This plant is kind of a touchy plant. The leaves on it are very, very thin. I would compare it to like a tissue paper type of consistency, as far as, you know, it being very, very thin leafed. The roots on it are actually, well, the aerial roots are really thick. The in the soil roots, some are thick and some are thin. It just kind of goes back and forth, but this plant does need a lot of water. You cannot let it grow out. I kind of treat her like I do my anthuriums, where I'm keeping the soil at a consistent wetness all the time. I never let it dry out, and then you don't want to overwater it either. You can see she's got a new growth right here, which, right here. Oops, sorry. Because she actually does need repotted. Now, like I said, this is a top cutting off of my mother plant, and you can see, hopefully, you can see all the roots in here. I just gave her another drink of water, but the roots are just massive. She is ready to be repotted, but because she's got this new growth, I want to wait for it to open up, harden off a little bit, and then I'll just lift her up and stick her into a bigger pot. I rooted her out in spag moss. It's just in there very, very lightly. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to repot her. My other one is growing in soil and perlite, real heavy perlite. That way it's got really good draining. But yeah, it's holding a little bit of that moisture. She does like a pretty bright light. I grow her under a grow light, and she really, really likes that. Both of these plants, my mother plant and this plant, both are being grown under grow lights right now because of where I have them. I have to have grow lights in those areas, so they will, once she gets repotted, she will go right back to that same area. I just noticed she's a little bit dusty, but so that's my soil And lighting, it doesn't have to be super bright light, but it does have to be a fairly nice light. You don't want to put it in low light. As far as humidity, she does require humidity. Right where I have her in both areas, in both rooms, they are both very close to a humidifier. I keep my humidity between 50 and 60. I try not to go above that, but living in Ohio, I mean, we get a lot of rain. So we have it's usually pretty humid in the winter and in the summertime. But with the heat running in the wintertime, I have to run my humidifiers. In the summertime, a lot of times I can go without running my humidity. But she seems to do well between the 50 and 60%. She does root very easy. You can see here, I mean, I could put my nail through this leaf very easily. But she doesn't have any brown tips or, you know, anything like that where the leaves are drying and coming out funky. You can see this one's perfectly good shape. It's still rolled up like a little burrito. I love watching plants do this. But, and I think as far as, I would say, and this is my opinion, like I said, I've had her 3 or 4 years now, and you can see, well, first I want to show you, this is her trunk. I call it a trunk. And this is where the air roots, well, I have to move my paper towel. I put a paper towel in here because she was leaning up against the pot and getting top heavy. So I just put the paper towel in. But you can see these were originally, oh, let's see, I don't know if you can see. These right here, these 2 roots were her air roots. And I just stuck them right down into this bag. And it took right off. It rooted really nicely. I made mid-cuts of this plant. I was going to actually give somebody a cut of this mid-cut. It didn't have any leaves. It was just the chunk. But all 3 of them rotted. So I did not have any luck this time. This is the 3rd time I've propagated this plant, and that's the first time I've ever had them rot on me. So, the guy I was going to send it to didn't get it this time, but maybe next time I'll send him one. But anyhow, in the wintertime, this plant loves heat. Once it starts dipping down in the wintertime, her leaves will start to yellow, and she'll go a little bit on the dormant side as far as her older leaves, if that makes much sense. I don't know, it's hard for me to explain this plant, but last year, those were the first 2 years I had her. Her older leaves were yellowing, and it would stay that way. They weren't yellowing to the point where, you know, I would have to, well, I did cut a couple off, but the majority of them stayed kind of on the yellowy, like a golden yellow color. I don't really know how to explain this, but anyways, last year, in my plant room, I put her in the warmest area in my plant room to try to keep the heat up a little bit, because we get really cold here in Ohio, and my plant room, my whole house can get really cold. There's some mornings I wake up, if it's, you know, the wind's really blowing, and it's cold, I wake up and it could be 64 to 67 degrees in here for my plants. So, yeah, it's kind of touch and go, but I usually do okay with my plants in the wintertime. So she does kind of go sort of semi-dormant, but it does continue to grow even in the wintertime. And I noticed last year with putting her in that little bit of a warmer spot, even though it was only a couple, 2, 3, 4 degrees, she did do a lot better. I still had a couple leaves of the older leaves yellowing, but the majority of them stayed this pretty shade of green. So, and this is another thing about this plant that I really like, is you can see not only is the stem huge, and the mother plant, it's even bigger, but you got these cute little polka dots. I hope it shows up on camera, but there's like little polka dots on the stems. I don't know if it's going to show up. I can't see clearly enough because I've got a light blinding me. But, yeah, it just is an absolutely beautiful plant. I love her. I actually paid quite a bit of money for her back when I first bought her a few years ago. I have seen them, and now they've got like a yellow color one. I think they called it, Where's the Wiki? God, that was a hard name. Aria, or I don't know, something like that. I forget. But that plant does not interest me. I do not like that yellow color. To me, it just looks like how this plant does when the leaves are dying off, or it goes into that little mid-type winter dormancy type thing that it goes through. I would not like that plant. Every time I look at it, I think it's dead. It's not like a lemon lime, or, you know, even a neon-y. Well, it kind of is a neon-y color, but I just wasn't attracted to it. I like the green Warszewiczii much, much better. But anyways, I think I covered everything about this plant. You know, you do not want to let it dry out for sure. She's done really great in moss. I might do an experiment and go ahead when I put her into a bigger pot. I might keep her in moss and then add some perlite and grow her that way while my mother plant is in the really airy soil mixture. You know, I might go that direction with the secondary one. I'm going to grow her out a little bit, I think. I actually did want to put it right back into the mother pot, but that plant, my mother plant, is a wild beast, and I do not know if I want to deal with that. And I'm okay with having two of these because I absolutely love it, and if I lost one, you know, I would still have the other. So that's one of those plants that I want to have doubles of. So yeah, I think I covered everything. So if you're thinking about getting this plant, or you have it and you're having problems with it, you know, some of these tips I just gave you might help as far as watering and light. Now, like when I put this out on my front porch in the summertime, which she just came in, mine is growing in a well, I get kind of a northwest from my porch, but I had her over more in the middle of my porch, and she did very, very well. Both plants. But, you know, you don't want to have it where it's going to get sunburned, because I think these leaves would just burn up super easy. But I love the shape of them, the shape of these leaves. They just, what they really remind me of, look at this a little bit closer. It reminds me of like a couple of my Rhipsalis that I have, and it also reminds me of a staghorn fern shaped type of leaf. But you can see how thin. I mean, these are like tissue paper thin leaves. But humidity, key. Light is key. Not letting her dry out is really key to this plant. I mean, if you can do all those things for her, I think you'll have a happy, healthy plant. Propagation has kind of been hit and miss with me. I propagated it the first year I had it, and it did fine. I propagated it a second time, and it did fine, but this last time I propagated, my top cut, which this is her, my top cut, did great, but the other two chunks that had no leaves on them just rotted on each end, and that was really weird because I left them sit out in the air and dry out really good for a couple of days. And I even put a little bit of rooting hormone, I think, or cinnamon. I forget which I used. I think it was cinnamon on both ends of the cuts that I made. So it was dried out really good, but it still rotted out on both ends that were cut. So I just had no luck with it. But alright guys, I am going to let you go. I just wanted to show you this beautiful plant because I have been admiring her a lot lately, and I think it is just gorgeous. But alright, I'll let you go. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Peace.